Tom, it's good to have you on the podcast, mate. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. It's good to have my barber on the podcast. It's good.
Yeah, but you're wearing a hat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Cool.
I know. But yeah, no, it's good to have you on, and I thought I'd just kind of ask, like how you kind of got into barbering, and what made you get into it.
The whole emergence of the company. It's a long story, but to summarize it, we started Clique Customs out as a clothing store online, and we were doing bike builds by commission, small engine bike builds to get people into the custom bike scene on a lower budget level, because I didn't really feel that there was a market for it.
Yeah.
So we done that program for probably about 18 months whilst doing a different job.
Yeah.
I developed the clothing brand around using different artists and working with different types of artists that I liked, that I used to buy their art from, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of took off and built the clothing brand as an online store. I was working as a plumbing and heating engineer and really needed an exit strategy for that. So that's where Clique Customs came from, or Clique came from. My viewpoint of I wanted to move away from that and get into something that was way more creative. In reference to the hair industry, when I came out of, I used to play football. When I came out of that, I looked at the option of going into to become a stylist, but I felt like it was a big jump from at that age, a very sort of male dominated profession, football, to the hair industry on the salon side of stuff, and it was probably too big a jump. So I retrained and diversified, and I ended up getting a trade, which I think was a really good thing, because it taught me a hell of a lot about business and how to run an efficient company, which I've used. A lot of those skills have been transferable since moving into Clique. But moving back to after about 18 months, we then wanted to take what we'd done onto the online program onto a physical store, because there was a gap in the market in the area that we are of Truro, Cornwall, where that custom bike scene wasn't really there. There wasn't a shop supplying the brands that I wanted, and there wasn't the idea of a concept store, which a multifaceted concept store was always something that I wanted Clique to be. Didn't want it just to be one thing. So the barbershop but the barbershop was a massive part of that, and it came in straight away at the start of it all. So we've got a 4-chair barbershop, and when we opened the store, we had 20 odd different brands from the motorcycle and lifestyle industry, as well as our own. So Clique Customs as a clothing brand came into the store. A whole bunch of other store brands came in, and we then started working with another custom bike builder, motorcycles, which we ran that program for about 18 months. And during that stage, it was always my end goal to diversify my abilities to what I brought to Clique and get involved in cutting hair. It was something that fascinated me from the minute I opened the doors. It was always, I've always used a barber. I used to have big beard, hair, whatever. So it was a fascination with the industry as a whole, the creative side of the industry. And I felt like it was something that I'd brought into my company, but I wanted to take a way more active role in the barbering industry within what I wanted it to be. So that's kind of the plan was always set from 4, 5, 6 years ago, that's where I wanted to be. It was just a case of taking the right pathways and working with the right people to ensure that I had a business that was in a position that would allow me to then go and do kind of what I wanted to do with it. So the business model, the ethos hasn't, but the business model has changed massively over the period of time that Clique Customs has been about.
No, I think it's awesome, like how you kind of blended like the biking side to it, and you've got the coffee side to it, the clothing side to it as well. You kind of like put it all into like one. I've never seen that in any other like kind of barbering kind of business. I think
when you look at what the concept of Clique was, was all of those things minus the coffee. The coffee side of things wasn't in there until post-COVID. It's always a dream of mine to have that involved in that, but in a realistic view, you can only have a certain size of building because of the costs, because of the rates, because of the rents. So how Clique's diversified from selling custom motorcycles and all of the clothing and all of the riding gear that went along with that, it was a very distinct decision that I made to move away from that because of a whole bunch of reasons that we can go into, and focus a business model down onto a cleaner, more streamlined business plan of basically allowing me to have a greater control over those aspects of ins and outs of the business. When you lend your floor space, or you have a concept store which relies upon a lot of incomings and outgoings of various different brands and clothing company, certain things really affect that. And Brexit for me was a massive thing that really started to affect the way that I was buying motorcycle clothing, buying bikes. And so I think in any business, it's very, very prudent to ensure that you're continually looking at the business model and working out what works better for you and how that can move forward to. You might start out with an idea and a dream and a focus and an intention. And whilst that's never changed in terms of the passion that I've got for each of those things that I've got, from a financial and a business point of view, I think a constant revolving business model is important to ensure that you're consistently getting the numbers right. Because you can have a dream, you can work on that dream, and you can have a business built around that. But if the core functions of it aren't overly working for you in your day-to-day life and what you want it to be like, you kind of don't have that same inbuilt passion for it or the drive to keep it going. So financially, making difficult decisions and evolving the brand rather than completely changing it was something that was massively key, and another driving force in me actually wanting to do what I wanted to do with the business. Cut hair.
Yeah. No, that's it. And I think that's kind of like one of the great things about it is that, you know, you kind of adapted, you know, especially, and you kind of got all these different avenues within it. And like you said, you know, with Brexit, you know, looking at the kind of price side of it as well, because there's all these kind of like challenges that kind of come up in business, and it's, you know, how do you kind of go around those, isn't it?
I saw a behavioural change in a number of the brands that we were working with. You know, we'd worked with some really cool brands in the bike industry, and as I guess their viewpoint on how Brexit would affect their ability to import and the costs, etc., me personally, I felt like that was something that not got passed down to, but it was an implication on the business of how much we were to spend, what our spend caps, instead of going down, they went up. The amount of money that they wanted me to invest in their brands and put on my shop floor. And I just overly felt that it was becoming, you know, I was seeing it going down a road of something I wasn't really into. You know, in the cold heart part of it, I didn't want to have to stock stuff to a certain level spend that I wasn't comfortable with. We did incredibly well with all of that, you know, side of the business for the 18 months that I was directing the business towards. And I think that, or ultimately, I think the amount of success that we had with those brands elevated us in their status to, well, this is a good account, this is a good door, so we want to get them to spend more. And I wasn't comfortable with it.
No.
It wasn't the direction that I overly wanted to go into. That sort of stuff takes up a lot of room. So I did look at different avenues. I did look at different venues. I did look at different options. But ultimately, and obviously with everything that's just gone on or is going on, I think being careful with the finances on a business is massively important. I think you get two different types of people. I think you get those that can run a business and have a passion behind it, and those that get caught up too much in the passion and the dream of it and don't look after the finances. And I think that's when, you know, the waters become quite muddied and you make different decisions that possibly aren't the best.
Yeah. No, I think that's key what you just said. And I think, like, that's kind of been highlighted in a lot of businesses. Some that have are still around and some that aren't, because the people behind it were so kind of focused on the kind of money side and not kind of focused on like the business side.
I think this is an unprecedented situation for everybody. I think if you look at what's happened as running a small independent business that dealt with European import, how the effect of Brexit, and I got out of that in time, but I don't know how that would have affected us, because I'm no longer involved in having to worry about any of that. I do genuinely think that it's a difficult road to walk along in any aspect of running a business, is to ensure that the finances are right.
Yeah, that's it. And you kind of like want to be happy with the products as well. And it's like, so, because I think like as well, I've worked in some restaurants sometimes, and I've not really been happy with the food, and it's hard to sell that if you're not to the customer, if you're not happy with, do you know what I mean, that product kind of thing. It's
I think, without coming across as like a bit of a control freak, which I'm more than happy to admit that's probably something that's quite a strong part of my character. It's my business. I've put a hell of a lot of things on the table for it. You have to be ultimately happy with everything that goes out your door. And if you're not creating it, if you're not making it, and if you're not in control of how it goes, the end buck stops with you. And that's something that I began to become very aware of with regard to the motorcycle industry and who I was working with. I previously mentioned them, probably won't again, but that became an issue to me. I felt like quality control was an issue. I started to see things that I didn't want to see. I started to have customers coming back that I didn't want to be coming back for the reasons that they were. And so I think, and that's a massive direction change. We now pretty much only work with 2 different companies in the barbering industry. One major one, which is Uppercut Deluxe.
Got the old mug here.
And they've been a fantastic brand, an alignment with us. They're a fantastic company because their product stands for it. Their products are highly quality, they're good quality products. They work well. They're a lifestyle brand. They have a diversification of what they do, whether it's skate, whatever, bikes. So it was always a very easy thing to align ourselves with Uppercut, and we've worked very, very well with them over the 3-4 years now. And that supply chain's easy. It's so well done. And then with Clique Customs, I moved away from working with different artists this point last year, pretty much. Not because I wasn't enjoying working with the other artists, and that's something that I'll revisit in the future. It's all about getting the balance right between putting something out, and I think I personally feel so much more connected to the brand now that I draw everything for it. So all of the designs for the last year have all been done by myself, and in it, I'm not going to lie, it was a scary point in time, from working with what I would consider proper artists and people that do that for a living, and using their artwork on my brand to, you know what, I'm going to stand by my own designs and my own creations and put that out and put yourself out there and go, I hope you like it. But again, a massively big decision, but one that I was super happy with. It's changed the whole ethos of the clothing side of the brand and the way that I developed that. But again, I'm happier with that. The way it's working now.
No, I really like your designs. Like, I've bought like a few of your items. I got this jumper. This is like your logo one, and then I got like one of your new T-shirts. I think with like the it's like a Russian doll, like a skeleton hand. Like, I really like the clothing, and I think that's kind of like, it kind of folds into kind of your brand, doesn't it? And it's unique because like, you designed it, you created it, and you're kind of not really going to get that on the shelf anywhere else unless.
No, I mean, I think that's as I mentioned, the direction change that I took with Clique Customs was, we used to do larger collections and have that amount of stock and do seasonal stuff, and I like to move things forward relatively quickly, and I was starting to feel like, because of the because of the monetary spend that we were doing on each collection, they needed to run for a certain period of time, and I'd need to reprint t-shirts or rerun stuff, and that to me wasn't what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more, a little bit more impact, a little bit more, those prints aren't rerun. We won't rerun certain things. We don't tend to just keep churning out the same thing. So that's changed. The core value of the company in terms of how we produce the clothing and what we use has always been a massively key point to me, because if the product's rubbish, doesn't matter what you put on it, you won't rebuy from that company. If t-shirts box out, if you're using cheaper garments, if you use more cottons. So for me, it was always I wanted it to be a quality product, an affordable price range, which sat right within the market. That hasn't changed. Just what has changed is the way I work with, you know, no longer any other artists at the moment that contribute to the brand, which has dropped the collections to a lot smaller. T-shirts get released, they get sold out, they won't be redone. We'll do new ones. If you missed out on it that time, you know, need to jump on it a bit quicker and get in. And sometimes you feel like, well, that t-shirt or that design was a really strong seller. We've paused. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're saying like people, before we kind of got connection to, you said like people, you know, might not get those kind of designs of when they're released, and then next time.
I mean, I think that's something that the temptation is if you've done really well with a certain design, is that the pressure is oh, this many people didn't get hold of it, and now it's always the same. Once you've sold out of many sizes of something, then people go, oh, I wanted that one. Well, it's not there anymore, and we're moving on. So that's the way I work with the clothing brand at the moment. I've sort of, same with the overall ethos of the brand. I've kind of restructured it, brought it back into more of a structured, smaller alignment of things.
No, I think it's really good, and I really like it. And I think that's kind of, you know, it's like unique, and you know, you're kind of like doing kind of your thing of what you think, you know, works. And I think, like in business, that's kind of like what you have to kind of do, isn't it? You know, be your own person, kind of follow what you think is right.
I think ultimately, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you can stand by the fact that, you know, you put yourself into it. As a small independent business, I think once you get bigger, that then changes. If other people become involved in the business, and you're talking bigger business, but you've then got people, their inputs get put involved. That I think ultimately can at times water down the overall ethos of it. I'm a really small company that a low amount of people, but everybody was involved in that process. I mean, you've been into the shop, you understand the vibe of it, you've seen how it feels. That's really important to me to maintain the core reason why I started Clique, and ensure that doesn't get changed. Doesn't matter what else changes, the customer service, the quality of our products is always the key thing to me. Otherwise, you've not really got much.
No, I agree. And I think, like, you know, I've been to different barbers, and you know, like coming to you, this is why I'm still with you, because it's like, you know, it's a good vibe. Like, you know, the guy, you know, your sound, the people with their sound, and you care about what you're doing. You know, like I've been to some barbers, and you go in, it's like, you know, and they don't really make much conversation, and they just want you in and out, and it's kind of rushed, and it's like, and I think like with yours, it's like, you know, it's, you know, you take interest in the people, you know, you care about what you're doing, you got a, you know, good product, and it's a nice vibe, and I think that's key in business, and just I think in life, you know, that, you know, that you care about the customers, and you know, and people aren't just focused on the money side of it. You know what I mean? Because
I did a hell of a lot of market research when I wanted to have. I broke down the businesses into each different aspect and what I wanted each one to do, fitting under the same umbrella of how it was going to feel. And with my barbershop, I didn't want it just to be a walk in, sit down, wait your turn, get in, get out, get gone, and cheers. I wanted it to be much more of a kind of bespoke feel to that. And we were actually the first company to open up an appointment-only barbershop in the city. And since obviously a lot of other people have kind of gone with that and followed that. Now, with this current environment, with the pandemic, it's changed a lot of things. You're not allowed to have just a simple walk-in barbershop anymore. Many are, I might add, and they should be. But, you know, the whole ethos of it's changed. But for me, it was always a strong amount of time for your appointment, to give the barber the right amount of time to create what they wanted to create. To us, it's always been way more than a haircut. That's the end product. That's what you walk away with. But it's more than that. It's the friendships that you've made with the people that sit in your chair, the reasons why they sit in your chair. Yes, it's ultimately for the haircut. If the haircut's shit, you ain't going to come back. But that's never been our thing. Our thing's good, high quality haircuts. Traditional barbering, there's no gimmicks, there's no add-ons, there's no airy-fairy stuff, which is just smoke screens. It's good, honest barbering in an environment which makes people feel comfortable. And it's a cool vibe. It's a safe place. It's a nice thing to build your relationships with your customers. Those are the people that pay your bills, and the attention is on them, not on the queue. And so that's something that was key to me. And anyone that's come into the business as a barber had to understand that. And that's the way we've always done it. And that's the way I'll always do that. Never change.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. And I think as well, like, it's different, you know, like, and from, it's a bit off topic, but, you know, from going to your bar, you know, having my haircut at your place, I've got more into like kind of heavy metal music. Like, I've been listening to like a lot of, I've been listening to a lot of Bring Me the Horizon recently, and like subconsciously, it's probably because I've been like, you know, sitting in the barbershop, and listening to like new music.
You make a valid point on that, because the way in which everybody, when we first opened the shop, everybody thought that we were a franchise, from probably because of the way that I sound, but from London, it was a franchise. You've come down, and it was a little while for that communication to come through that, no, we're an independent store. That's where we're from. I've lived in Cornwall for 11 years. It's not something that, you know, this isn't part of a bigger thing. I just presented something that I don't think the area had particularly seen before. Not reinvented the wheel, don't get me wrong, but it's providing something that's different from anybody else. And you either, we get so, I mean, you've just referenced the type of music that we play. It's, you know, it's an extension of me. It's pretty heavy music. It undulates and it changes, but that's the vibe that I don't want to work in a shop that just plays lift music or doesn't have music, or it's an extension of who and what we are. You might come into the shop and you might not be a metal fan. You might not be into heavy music, but the vibe within that shop doesn't deter that. It doesn't put you off. It adds to the experience of it, because it's often quite different from what other people have been used to. And the vibe in there is so engaging. Everybody's such a nice character that probably the misconception that we've battled with for since we've been open is that, you know, conceivably that shop might be a little bit unapproachable, etc. But it's far from that, you know. And I think the testament to that is the volume of custom that we've got that sit in the chairs, that use the shop, that do the coffee. And that's key to the experience. You're not buying a haircut, you're buying an experience, from customer service level to a different vibe. And it infiltrates the way, I mean, it's not too grandiose to say, but it infiltrates the way people listen to different music, the way that they dress, the things that they buy, the products that they eat, the way they style their hair, all of that. And I think if we've done anything right, we've had a tiny little impact on different people's lifestyles to incorporate different aspects of it. And that's why when I said it's more than a haircut, I seriously believe that it is. It's offering a service that just gives that little bit more. Different.
No, I totally agree with you. And it's like it opened my eyes to, like, you know, like you say, new hair brand, you know, like Uppercut. I never heard of Uppercut until I think I went to your place, and then I think I was using like crappy. What was I using before? Like Shockwaves or VO5 or some brand that wasn't too, you know, I didn't think it's too good. And, you know, it kind of says a lot about, you know, the quality, doesn't it? You know, like you kind of got high quality, you know, brand with high quality, you know, good quality hair products and things like that. And I think that's overall, you know, really important. I think it says a lot about.
It's a massive important thing, because it's the thing that Uppercuts built by barbers for barbers. So they'd never put anything out that wasn't going to be working on the floor. And as you work more with Uppercut, they ask you your feedback on formulas and how that hair product works. And consistently, they've just brought out a powder and a sea salt spray, which is phenomenal. I mean, the smell of the sea salt spray is brilliant. We use it as a pre-styler or a finish styler, and it gives added options to the male grooming industry without taking it. For me personally, Uppercut don't take the male grooming industry and try and move it away from that traditional feel of the barbershop and what it is for youth by a guy.
Yeah.
Because it's still got those roots in a male grooming company. So they're not trying to diversify overly to sell to the widest possible market that they can. And I think the product is just a quality, high quality product.
Yeah. No, that's it. Like a few questions. I was just thinking, do you have any like role models, whether that's like professionally or family or anyone you kind of like look up to?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest idol growing up was my brother.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not here anymore. He died like 10
years.
Yeah. But growing up with him, he was the person that I wanted to emulate and be like because of who he was as a person. So I think personally that professionally, I think I get a lot of influence from like different tattoo artists, different ways that they work and how they put things down. So I think that there's a lot of artists that I like. Singling anyone out is difficult. Within the barbering industry, there's a good few people that have massively influenced the way that I do things. And the guys from SB Barbering Academy and Vicky Smith and all of those guys, they're hugely influential on me as a barber, the way it is. So yeah, I have a whole bunch, but I think it's really important to be inspired by people, and I think it's really lazy just to copy. So it's really important that you kind of emulate the different things that you want to take from each different aspect of things that influence or shape your viewpoints in life. And I think that's how do you make that your own? How do you put your own twist onto it? And how do you utilize what you've learned from people and bring it into your own, because you are your own person. And that's, so yeah, I have a fair few, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important, like what you said, like, being yourself and kind of being genuine and not copying other people, because people will notice that. People will see that if you just trying to be, I don't know, like someone else or something else.
And, there's many life lessons to be learned of different aspects, and everybody's been through their own thing, and you only kind of know what it's like for somebody if you've walked in their shoes, as cliche as that sounds, but that's true. So what's the point in spending whatever time that you've got on this earth to be someone that you're not? That to me never is a thing. So you in order to please anybody else, you're going to have to please yourself and be true to who you are, what you believe in. And as long as you're looking after people and not acting like a complete arsehole and making other people's lives, you've got to do what makes you happy. And then if you're the best thing that you can be, I think that then radiates out and hopefully gives the opportunity to influence other people or to provide a service or whatever it might be. But I think that's really key. I think there's too many people that live vicariously through other people, especially with social media and stuff like that. So influence is everywhere, but at the end of the day, you are who you are, and that's what you've got to be. Otherwise, you've not got much.
I understand, and I agree, and I think like that's kind of like being a person, isn't it? Trying to find out who you are and being yourself. And I think if you're trying to be like someone else for whatever reason, it's not going to be as impactful compared to being yourself. And Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
I think without, you know, putting aspersions onto other people's characters or stuff like that, I think it's very, very easy to not potentially look at the things that you're not happy with working life, personal life, etc., and acting or dress or be styled or behave in a different way to kind of mask those things that, in actuality, if you're happy with who you are and what you do and how you do it, and the rest of it just comes from there. So my attraction to people is if they're a genuine human being, that it could be completely different to me. They could be completely different to me. It doesn't, you know, I've got no interest in just hanging out with the same people, because you have your circle of friends, and mine's very small, and I'm proud of that, because those people that are in that circle, they're there for a reason, and those that aren't. And that's a massively important thing for me personally, as a you know, just got to be you.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. You know, like that kind of like tribe of people that you have. And when I was at school, like I didn't really know where my tribe was, and I think I felt very different, and I was trying to like, I think people please, things like that, and kind of around people that weren't really on the same vibe. And I think it's important to kind of, you know, be with the people that you kind of resonate with. I mean, everyone's different, but if you can kind of find that kind of small kind of tribe of people that you can rely on and trust, and kind of get that, you know, what you give out is what you get back, kind of thing. You know, if they're doing the same as you.
Personally, I think that comes with probably a little bit of age, a little bit of life experience, a little bit of meeting different people along the way, being influenced by different people, and ultimately realizing that some people are there not for the right reasons. They might want to, you know, get involved in different aspects of life that you don't want to. And I think as a younger person now growing up, I think it's even harder, because people are real heavily judgmental on a lot of stuff. And I think growing up as a kid, you know, the world that is a very different place to when I was a small boy. So
yeah,
I think it's just important. I think your friends and your family and around you and who's there is, you can choose some, you can't choose the others. But yeah, ultimately it's about being who you are and what you're about, rather than just being completely blindsided by everything else that's going on in the world.
Yeah, no, so true. No, so true. As well, like, what, just to like kind of like round up like another question. What advice, if you could give any advice to people who, you know, want to start out in business, or, you know, to kind of pursue something that they, you know, want to do, like what advice would you give? Like, if you could like say anything.
Yeah, I mean, everything unfortunately relates back to numbers. It relates back to the core foundation. You, as I said earlier, I think you can have a dream, you can have an idea, you can have an ethos behind what you want to create, and you could think it's the best thing in the world. But unless you can get the structure of how you're going to do that and how much it's going to cost you, and the finances, the boring stuff, the grind of the boring stuff of business is actually the backbone of it all. And no one gets it right all the time, 100%, because that's business. And I think you go through good periods of time, you go through bad periods of time, and you learn lessons along the way. But my advice, I actually went up to a college course and worked with the guys at Truro College on that point exactly. They were trying to bring a product to market, and the question got asked, and it's a boring answer. I can't give a more interesting answer. It's the facts, the figures, the numbers, and everything in line to ensure you've probably got. So my advice would be, write a business plan, understand the business plan, but understand more that business plan is going to change, be fluid. No one's going to hold you to the fact that business plan changed over X amount of years or months or whatever. But get your facts and figures right, get your finances, get the structure behind the business correct. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, that's what runs everything.
Yeah,
that'd be my biggest piece of advice. And enjoy it. Enjoy what you do. Enjoy the process of it, because otherwise, I don't know how it would work if you were in a business that you just didn't like. Because running a business or being an independent means that when you shut the door of your shop or your factory or whatever it is, doesn't stop. You know, you go home and it's always there. It's always on your mind. So if you're not engaged in what you're doing, you could be the best businessman in the world, but you might be motivated by the money it makes you. If you're not interested in the product, you might be motivated by that, but you've still got to have a passion behind something to do with it, I would say, because I don't think many people start off an independent business on something that they don't like.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice, and I agree with what you're saying. And I think like if you got that passion for it, it's that kind of driving force that propels you, you know. And I think there's got to be that kind of reason behind it. And I think people just focus, you know, just focus on the money side of it, then you know, they're probably not going to enjoy it as much compared to the person who's got that passion behind it and that happiness behind it.
I think it's finding a balance.
Yeah.
I'm personally not motivated by money in terms of how much you've got or what you can do with it, or the frivolous things that people, you know, potentially might spend their money on. Some people are different from that, you know, but providing and creating something that you've got for me personally, a heart and soul into creates a much better sort of feel and a lifestyle to what you're doing, which is a massive driver to why I, you know, went back into making sure I was cutting on the floor and getting that creative side of it, because potentially you can earn more money elsewhere and doing other things in different aspects of business, but ultimately you got to make yourself happy and enjoy what you do.
Yeah. No, that's it. And I think that's really, really great advice. And I think, you know, like people will take a lot from that. And, you know, by thinking about, you know, what they're doing and what makes them happy, I think that's kind of like where it lies, you know. That's kind of like, I think, where the focus is kind of going. You know, a lot of people, especially like during lockdown, a lot of people, you know, probably think about what they're doing and then, you know, thought, I'm not happy doing this, I'm going to do something else.
I think as terrible as certain aspects of the pandemic and the lockdown have been for people's mental health and business and families and structure and everything else, I think which I think you've got to try and do, is take positives, which is difficult at times, to try and take positives out of most situations. I'm not always very good at it. But if anything, lockdowns taught me personally that what's important, what's really, really important, and how to structure effectively your working life around what's important, what makes you happy. And I've made structural changes to the business in order to do those things, hours changing, stuff like that. But I do think that extended period of time, which is long enough for people to change their habitual behaviors, you know, it was a long time still going on. That's something that's massively important. And I felt like I got a lot out of that, taking a step back, looking at what ultimately is the reasons why we do many, many things, and spending time with people, spending time with family, and you know, because friends weren't a part of that. They were removed from that. And so I think a lot of people felt that void, and you realized potentially what relationships were super important to you. And I think that, if anything, gives you that ability to take that step back, because it was an enforced step back from life, and evaluate stuff. And I don't think that's a bad thing to do. And I think, if anything, if a life lessons to be learned for me from lockdown, it was that there's no harm in taking a step back and kind of almost reevaluating certain aspects of things. Because I don't believe in day-to-day life you can get caught up and run away with what's going on in the right now. If it's this close to you the whole time, potentially you've got to sort of stop and think, what's the direction, what's the reasoning? And that was a positive for me. The business, that's why I brought the coffee side into it. I took the opportunity to bring the coffee shop into the building, adding to another aspect of it. But that potentially, as much of a dream that was since I started the company, had lockdown not have come about, I'm not sure that would have happened. So, you know, lots of to be thankful for it. Unfortunately, it's not a situation I think anyone would want.
No.
But you got to make the best of it.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely that silver lining to it, isn't there? And you know, you kind of like improvised and done that, you know, through the coffee and many other aspects. And I'll always be a customer of yours, and come get my haircut, and it's it's great talking to you about these things, and kind of how you kind of got into it. I really appreciate it, and I think it's really been great talking to you about it.
Thank you ever so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome, Tom. I'll put in like your social media side in all the links, but like where can people find just like Clique? Is it
Clique,
Barbershop?
Clique Customs. The website's cliquecustoms.com. On Instagram, there's 3 separate profiles. I've got my own personal barber one. But yeah, if you just search Clique on the various socials, they'll jump on it and find it.
Yeah, not awesome. No, it's great. But no, you're welcome. But I thank you for coming on, and I'll see you in the chair in probably a couple of weeks or whenever it gets a bit.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Take it easy, Tom. No, you're welcome, man. Take it easy, man.